The old elementary school of Ashford Hollow stood like a tired sentinel at the edge of town, its paint peeling, windows fogged with years of unwashed dust. For decades, the school had been the heart of this rural community. Christmas plays in the gym, town meetings in the cafeteria, children's laughter echoing through the hallways. But silence now clung to it like mildew. On a gray October morning, a sheriff's deputy walked the corridors with his K9, following up on a routine security sweep. What the dog clawed at beneath a mural in the East Wing would unravel trust, history, and innocence in ways no one imagined. If you like atmospheric thrillers like this, you might want to follow along. There's more coming as the story unfolds. The corridor smelled of wet plaster and chalk dust, though no class had been taught here in nearly 6 months. Sheriff's Deputy Tom Callahan let his boots scuff against the checkered linoleum as he followed his dog, Ranger, through the East Wing. Ranger was restless today, nose low, tail stiff, muscles taut. Not the playful curiosity of a dog sniffing out mice or dust. This was sharper, urgent. Tom trusted that instinct. "Easy, boy," he muttered. Tightening his grip on the leash as Ranger stopped dead before a mural painted across the wall. Ashford Hollow through the seasons. It had been done years ago by students and a few teachers. Children with mittens playing in the snow on one panel. Yellow cornstalks waving in the harvest on another. Bright, innocent scenes meant to soften the otherwise institutional walls. Ranger pressed his paws against the autumn panel, where a scarecrow loomed in a field of painted pumpkins. His nails scratched furiously at the plaster, gouging flakes of color. Tom frowned. "What the hell's gotten into you?" The dog whined, dug harder. Chipped paint fluttered down like confetti. Tom set down his flashlight and knelt. The walls sounded different where Ranger scratched. Not the solid thud of cinder block. This was hollow. "Jesus," Tom whispered, rapping his knuckles across it. He thought of raccoons nesting inside, or maybe a rotten beam collapsed behind the plaster. But Ranger's growl said otherwise. By the time Principal Ellen Morse arrived, summoned by Tom's radio call, a patch the size of a dinner plate had been shredded away. Ellen's heels clicked nervously on the linoleum. She was in her mid-50s, hair pulled tight, a reputation for keeping order as rigid as her skirt suits. Her sharp eyes darted from Tom to the exposed hole in the wall. "What on earth are you doing to my building?" she demanded. Tom rose slowly, brushing dust from his knees. "Your building? It's county property now, and my dog's telling me something's back here." Ellen crossed her arms, but her face paled as Ranger's claws widened the cavity. Behind the plaster wasn't insulation or wiring, but a recess carved into the wall itself, a space deliberately hidden. Tom's flashlight beam caught on paper. Dozens of sheets stuffed tight, drawings by the look of them. He reached in, pulling one free. A child's crayon sketch. Crude stick figures lined up under a crooked sun. But there was something off. The faces were scribbled out, black circles where eyes should be. Ellen's lips tightened. "This is old student artwork. Someone must have saved it here. Nothing more." Tom studied her. She was too quick, too precise, like she had rehearsed an answer. Ranger barked, pawing again. Tom pulled another sheet, this one darker. A figure standing over what looked like a smaller figure sprawled on the ground. Red crayon pooled beneath. His stomach clenched. "You call this nothing?" Ellen's hand fluttered toward her throat. "It's children. They draw strange things sometimes. We shouldn't overreact." Tom slid the drawings into a folder. "No one carves a damn cavity into a school wall for this unless they mean to hide it." The radio on his shoulder crackled. Dispatch's voice was calm, routine. But Tom's pulse was hammering. The mural wasn't just decoration anymore. It was cover. Ellen shifted, her knuckles white against her clipboard. "Deputy, I need you to remember, Ashford Hollow is a small town. Things get twisted fast. Let's not alarm anyone unnecessarily." Tom studied her again. The dog still growled low. And for the first time in years, Tom realized he didn't trust the people who ran this school. The faculty lounge smelled faintly of burnt coffee and cleaning chemicals, the kind of sterile scent that clung long after the building had been locked for summer. The overhead fluorescent lights buzzed like nervous insects. Tom Callahan sat at the round table, The folder of recovered drawings spread before him. The papers curled at the edges, brittle, yellowing. He wore the expression of a man who wanted to look away, but couldn't. Principal Ellen Moore stood by the counter, arms crossed, as though sheer posture could control the situation. "They're disturbing," she admitted, finally. "But children process the world differently. You've been in law enforcement long enough to know not every dark picture means." "These aren't just dark," Tom interrupted. He held up one with both hands. The crayon line shook slightly from age, but the image was unmistakable. A man with a long coat drawn in black, towering over a small figure inside a classroom. The smaller figure had no face, just a jagged hole where features should have been. Ellen pressed her lips thin. "Children exaggerate. You're making leaps." Tom leaned back, then explained why they were stuffed into a wall cavity. Not in a box, not in a file, but hidden. That's not a child's decision. For the first time, Ellen's mask cracked. A faint twitch near her temple. Before she could answer, the lounge door swung open. A younger teacher stepped in. Sarah Holt, mid-30s, ash-blonde hair tucked behind her ears. She carried a stack of papers, but froze when she saw the drawings on the table. Her face drained. What are those?" she whispered. "Something your students left behind," Tom said, watching her reaction. Sarah set her papers down, carefully, like her hands might tremble if she wasn't deliberate. She stared at the sketch of the man in the coat. "I've seen that before." Ellen's head snapped around. "Sarah," a warning in her tone. Sarah swallowed. "Years ago, some of the kids, they used to talk about a man who watched them, not someone on staff. Just someone. They called him the Shadow." Ellen's voice sharpened. "Stories. Children make up stories, deputy. Sarah knows better than to." But Tom caught the flicker of fear in Sarah's eyes. Not make-believe fear. Memory. "Who was he?" Tom asked softly. Sarah hesitated. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. "No one ever proved he was real." Ranger barked suddenly from the hallway, claws scrabbling at another door. Tom rose, heart knocking against his ribs. Ellen tried to block him. "You don't have a warrant. The school isn't a crime scene." "Not yet," Tom said, moving past her. The door Ranger clawed, it was the old supply closet off the east wing, steel handle tarnished, paint flaking. Tom yanked it open. The smell hit him first, musty, like old paper left in damp air. Inside, rows of boxes stacked against the wall, most labeled in neat handwriting. Attendance records 1992 to 1995, cafeteria invoices, PDA minutes. But one drawer of a metal filing cabinet stood slightly ajar, as if tugged but never closed. Dust lined every handle except that one. Tom pulled it open. Inside were student files. Dozens, maybe hundreds. But these weren't standard records. No report cards, no attendance logs. These were notes. Some written in children's shaky cursive. Others in the clipped hand of adults. Descriptions of nightmares, fears, drawings paper-clipped to them. Almost all carried the same repeated motif. The man in the coat. Tom's throat tightened as he flipped through one after another. "He waits in the hallway at night. Don't tell or he'll get mad. I don't like when he makes us stay after." Some notes were blurred, as if water-stained by tears. Sarah hovered in the doorway, pale as chalk. "I told you, the kids," they all said. Ellen's voice cut like a whip. "That's enough." She grabbed the drawer, slamming it shut. Tom's jaw tightened. "Why are you trying so hard to bury this?" Ellen turned, fury trembling under her controlled voice. "Because this school has been here 100 years. It has weathered scandals, budget cuts, fires. And this town survives because it trusts its institutions. If you dig, if you drag up half-formed whispers from decades ago, you'll destroy that trust. For what? Scribbles in crayon." Her words rang with conviction, but Tom heard something else buried inside them. Fear. Not for the town. For herself. Sarah whispered, "You knew." Ellen flinched. Only for a second, but it was enough. The sheriff's station was dim that night, the kind of dimness that seeps into a man's bones. Tom sat at his desk, the folder of drawings beside him. while Ranger dozed at his feet. The desk lamp pulled light on the papers, leaving the rest of the office in shadow. He dialed an old number, the retired janitor, Hal Crowley, a man who'd worked at Ashford Hollow for 30 years. Hal answered on the third ring, voice gravelly with age. Crowley. Hal, it's Deputy Callahan. I need to ask you about the East Wing murals. And the man the kids used to talk about. Silence hummed over the line. Finally, Hal exhaled. You found it, didn't you? Tom's grip tightened on the receiver. Found what? Hal's laugh was bitter, hollow. I told them to seal it up, said it would come back to bite us. But they wanted quiet. Always quiet. Tom leaned forward. Hal, who was he? The old man's voice dropped. Not who. Which one? A chill lanced Tom's spine. You need to let this go, Deputy, Hal rasped. You tear at old walls, you find rot, and rot spreads. Then the line went dead. The next morning, Tom drove back to school before dawn. Miss clung to the playground, swings shifting in the fog like someone unseen had just left. The building loomed against the gray sky, windows blank as blind eyes. Inside, the hallways were darker, colder. He moved past the mural Ranger had shredded. The cavity gaped like an open wound. Further down, another mural covered the wall. Children in springtime, kites flying high. Ranger whined, ears pricking. His nose pressed against the kite strings painted across the plaster. He began to scratch. Tom's chest tightened. Another hollow echo behind the wall. Another secret waiting. This time, he didn't wait for Ellen. He pulled his pocket knife, wedged it into the plaster seam, and pried. Chunks broke away. Dust filled the air. And inside, bundled in rotting cloth, was something far heavier than paper. Tom reached in, hands trembling. The cloth tore away to reveal bones. Small, fragile, a child's remains. Ranger barked, a sharp, echoing sound that rattled down the empty corridor. Tom staggered back, bile rising in his throat. The murals weren't just decoration. They were graves. The sun never seemed to reach the east wing. Even at noon, the corridor remained half in shadow. The colors of the murals washed pale, as if someone had drained them of life. Deputy Tom Callahan stood at the police tape strung across the hallway, the sour taste of sleepless coffee clinging to his tongue. Forensics had come and gone, their whispers sharp, their gloved hands lifting what remained of the child's bones from inside the wall. One skeleton, small enough to fit in his arms. Tom's chest ached every time he thought of it. Principal Ellen Moore sat in her office, waiting. Her reputation had kept her calm through the night's chaos. Press calls, county officials demanding reports. But Tom had seen the cracks spreading across her veneer. He pushed open her office door. Ellen didn't rise. She sat at her desk, hands clasped, staring past at the autumn mural that loomed through the window. You knew, Tom said flatly. Ellen's eyes flickered, but her voice was measured. I knew whispers. Half-truths. That's all anyone ever had. Tom tossed a copy of the old janitor's statement onto her desk. Hal Crowley told me it wasn't one man. Which one? He said, meaning there were more. Ellen's shoulders stiffened. How many kids are buried in your walls, Ellen? Her jaw trembled. For a moment, Tom thought she'd break. Instead, she smoothed her skirt and spoke evenly. Deputy, if you tear down this school, you tear down the town. You'll drag every family, every memory through the mud. Do you want Ashford Hollow to live with that? Tom leaned forward, his voice rough. A child's bones were in your walls. Families already live with it. They just don't know yet. For the first time, Ellen's composure cracked. Tears welled at the corners of her eyes, though her voice stayed steel. You don't understand what this place gave people. Jobs, identity, pride. If word gets out, Ashford Hollow is nothing but a ruin. Tom slammed a hand on the desk. Then let it burn. The silence that followed was heavy, ragged, broken only by Ranger's low growl at the doorway. Ellen's eyes shifted, fearful, but not for herself. You think I was the one hiding children? I tried to protect them. Tried to make it stop. Tom froze. Protect them from who? That night, Tom spread the recovered files across his kitchen table. Ranger lay nearby, ears twitching in the quiet. Each file was a cry for help. Drawings, letters, scribbled confessions. And each one was signed by a different child. But the pattern emerged in the margins. Scrawled notes in adult handwriting. Initials, S.H. Sarah Holt, the young teacher. The one who had seemed so shaken, so innocent. Tom's breath slowed. His mind replayed her words. I've seen that before. The shadow, not fear, recognition. He grabbed his keys. Sarah lived alone in a weather-beaten farmhouse a mile from the school. Porch light flickering, weeds choking the yard. Tom parked outside, headlights cutting through mist. Ranger whined low. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the house smelled of turpentine and mildew. Sketches littered every surface. Children drawn in waxy crayon, their faces scribbled out, dozens of them. Tom's heart pounded. Sarah? His voice echoed against the peeling wallpaper. From the back room, a floorboard creaked. Tom drew his weapon, pushed open the door. Sarah sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, drawings scattered around her like fallen leaves. Her eyes were red, her hands smudged with crayon. I didn't want them to be forgotten, she whispered. No one ever listened. Not the principal. Not the board. They all knew. They all looked away. Tom steadied his gun, though his hand trembled. You stuffed bones in the walls? Her head snapped up, wild. No. I found them. Years ago. I found the first one, and Ellen begged me to stay quiet. Said it was an accident from decades earlier. Said the school couldn't survive a scandal. I was young, stupid, scared. I agreed. She pressed her fists against her temples. But then I started hearing the whispers. The kids were still talking. New kids. And when I searched, I found more drawings. More hiding places. Tom's stomach turned. Then why not go to the police? Because the police backed and were part of it. Her eyes burned with rage. Don't you get it? This town protected its monsters. Better pretend nothing happened than admit everything. Tom's throat was dry. So you hid the drawings. I preserved them, she snapped. Proof. For the day someone finally listened. Her gaze flicked to him, desperate. And now you have. You can't stop. You can't let Ellen bury it again. The next morning, the county sheriff arrived with a team. Walls were opened, murals torn down. Behind a spring mural, 2 more bundles of cloth, each holding tiny bones. Behind the winter mural, none. Just a stack of drawings, so disturbing even seasoned deputies turned away. And behind the summer mural, nothing but a hollow space lined with scratches. Fingernail scratches. The air in the school grew thick, unbearable. Deputies moved like ghosts through the halls, as if afraid to disturb what lingered there. Tom stood in the corridor, staring at the gouges inside the summer cavity. Small hands had clawed, desperate, unseen, until silence took them. Ellen was escorted out in handcuffs. Not for murder. There was no proof she had ever harmed a child, but for obstruction, falsification, decades of silence. As she passed Tom, she hissed, You don't understand what you've done. The town will never recover. But Tom looked at the murals, broken open, secrets spilling like dust. Maybe it shouldn't. Weeks passed. Reporters swarmed. Families wept. Graves were dug where there had never been markers before. Tom stopped by the playground one evening, when the sky bled orange and purple. Ranger patted at his side. Children's laughter no longer echoed here. The swings moved only with the wind. Sarah approached quietly, her face worn, hollowed. She had resigned from teaching. No one would trust her again, not after keeping silent so long. They'll paint over it all, she said softly. Tear the school down, maybe. Pretend again. Tom shook his head. Not this time. She looked at him, eyes wet. Do you ever wonder if the town will forgive us? For not saving them? Tom's gaze lingered on the empty slides, the rusting monkey bars. I don't need forgiveness. I just need them remembered. For a long moment, they stood in silence. The evening breeze carried the faint creak of chains. The swing moving like a ghost child had climbed aboard. Ranger sat at Tom's feet, ears pricked, watching the horizon. The past would never be erased. The walls had spoken. And for Ashford Hollow, nothing would ever be the same.